Yo, this your boy K.Z.U.P TV. About to finish this segment. Some people had some questions earlier, so we're gonna do this on spherical Earth. I'm gonna do some videos, give y'all some little insights. I dropped the link down, so if somebody want to come up and debate it. It's just educational. I'm just trying to get these flat earthers to get off this flat Earth gibberish. So I'm gonna play some videos. Feel free to comment. Join the link. You got something to say? Other than that, I'm about to get this thing started. Let me throw the screen share up here. All right, we got the screen share jumping. All right, I'm gonna show this video. We're gonna take it from there. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know if I went to the right one. Hold on. Why is 3x? Okay, there we go. All right, yeah, like I said, it's just some little educational videos.
The script and voiceover for this video were done by Fraser Kane,
like I said, I dropped
publisher
the
of
down
Universe Today.
So
make sure you
got
check out his channel after this video.
Comment or jump in.
Planet Earth, that shiny blue marble that has fascinated humanity since they first began to walk across its surface. And why shouldn't it fascinate us? In addition to being our home and the place where life as we know it originated, it remains the only planet we know of where life thrives.
After I show you all this shit, don't be talking about no more flat Earth.
Much more about Earth, which has only deepened our fascination with it. Here are 10 interesting facts about Earth that you may or may not know. Plate tectonics keep the planet comfortable. Earth is the only planet in the solar system with plate tectonics. Basically, the outer crust of the Earth is broken up into regions known as tectonic plates. These are floating on top of the magma interior of the Earth and can move against one another. When two plates collide, one plate will subduct or go underneath another, and where they pull apart, they will allow fresh crust to form. This process is very important, and for a number of reasons. Not only does it lead to tectonic resurfacing and geological activity, like earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, mountain building, and oceanic trench formation, it's also intrinsic to the carbon cycle. When microscopic plants in the ocean die, they fall to the bottom of the ocean. Over long periods of time, the remnants of this life, rich in carbon, are carried back into the interior of the Earth and recycled. This pulls carbon out of the atmosphere, which makes sure that we don't suffer a runaway greenhouse effect, which is what happened on Venus. Without the action of plate tectonics, there would be no way to recycle this carbon, and the Earth would become an overheated, hellish place. Earth is almost a sphere. Many people tend to think that the Earth is a sphere. In fact, between the 6th century BCE and the modern era, this remained the scientific consensus.
And this right here just
thanks to modern astronomy and space travel, scientists have since come to understand that the Earth is actually a flattened sphere,
especially where that first line
an oblate spheroid. This shape is similar to a sphere, but where the poles are flattened and the equator bulges. In the case of the Earth, this bulge is due to our planet's rotation. This means that the measurement from pole to pole is about 43 kilometers less than the diameter of the Earth across the equator. Even though the tallest mountain on Earth is Mount Everest, the feature that's farthest from the center of the Earth is actually Mount Chimborazo in Ecuador. Earth is mostly iron, oxygen, and silicon. If you could separate the Earth out into piles of material, you'd get 32.1% iron, 30.1% oxygen, 15.1% silicon, and 13.9% magnesium. Of course, most of this iron is actually located at the core of the Earth. If you could actually get down and sample the core, it would be 88% iron. And if you sample the Earth's crust, you'd find that 47% The Earth's atmosphere extends to a distance of 10,000 kilometers. Earth's atmosphere is thickest within the first 50 kilometers from the surface or so, but it actually reaches out to about 10,000 kilometers into space. It's made up of 5 main layers: the troposphere, the stratosphere, the mesosphere, the thermosphere, and the exosphere. And as a rule, air pressure and density decrease the higher one goes into the atmosphere and the farther one is from the surface. The bulk of the Earth's atmosphere is down near the Earth itself. In fact, 75% of the Earth's atmosphere is contained within the first 11 kilometers above the planet's surface. However, the outermost layer, the exosphere, is the largest, extending from the exobase, located at the top of the thermosphere at an altitude of about 700 kilometers above sea level to about 10,000 kilometers. The exosphere merges with the emptiness of outer space where there is no atmosphere. The exosphere is mainly composed of extremely low densities of hydrogen, helium, and several heavier molecules, including nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. The atoms and molecules are so far apart that the exosphere no longer behaves like a gas, and the particles constantly escape into space. These free-moving particles follow ballistic trajectories and may migrate in and out of the magnetosphere or with the solar wind. Want more planet Earth facts? We're halfway through. Here come 5 more.
Hey, beautiful viewer. Just before we go on, show us some love. Click subscribe and the bell icon for more videos. Now back to the video. Enjoy.
The Earth's molten iron core creates a magnetic field. The Earth is like a great big magnet with poles at the top and bottom near the actual geographic poles. The magnetic field it creates extends thousands of kilometers out from the surface of the Earth, forming a region called the magnetosphere. Scientists think that this magnetic field is generated by the molten outer core of the Earth, where heat creates convection motions of conducting materials to generate electric currents. Be grateful for the magnetosphere. Without it, particles from the sun's solar wind would hit the Earth directly, exposing the surface of the planet to significant amounts of radiation.
I'm still at it, Quentin,
Instead,
man.
the magnetosphere
Trying to
channels the
educate a
solar
couple of these
wind
flat
around the
earthers,
Earth,
man.
protecting
How
us
this
from
shit
harm.
really go, that's all.
Scientists have also theorized that Mars' thin atmosphere is due to it having a weak magnetosphere compared to the Earth's, which allowed solar wind to slowly strip it away. Earth doesn't take 24 hours to rotate on its axis. It actually takes 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds for the Earth to rotate once, completely on its axis.
So when somebody
which
say some
astronomers
stupid
refer
shit
to
about
as a sidereal day. Now wait a
how
second, doesn't that
fast
mean that the day
fucking
is
Earth's
4 minutes
spinning.
shorter than we think it is?
Yeah, it's
You'd
fast,
think
but
that
since
this
it's so
time
big,
would
it
add
only
up
spin
day by
once a
day,
day.
and within a few months, day would be night and night would be day. But remember that the Earth orbits around the sun. Every day, the sun moves compared to the background stars by about 1%, about the size of the moon in the sky. And so, if you add up that little motion from the sun that we see because the Earth is orbiting around it, as well as the rotation of its axis, you get a total of 24 hours. This is what's known as a solar day, which is contrary to a sidereal day, is the amount of time it takes for the sun to return to the same place in the sky. A year on Earth isn't 365 days. It's actually 365.2564 days. It's this extra 0.2564 days that creates the need for a leap year once every 4 years. Earth has 1 moon and 2 co-orbital satellites. As you're probably aware, Earth has 1 moon, the moon, and plenty is known about this body, so we won't go into much detail here. But did you know there are 2 additional asteroids locked into co-orbital orbits with Earth? They're called 3753 Cruinia and 2002 AA29, which are part of a larger population of asteroids known as near-Earth objects, or NEOs. The asteroid known as 3753 Cruinia measures 5 kilometers across, is sometimes called Earth's second moon. But it doesn't actually orbit the Earth and has a synchronized orbit with our home planet. It has an orbit that makes it look like it's following the Earth in orbit, but it's actually following its own distinct path around the sun. Meanwhile, 2002 AA29 is only 60 meters across and makes a horseshoe orbit around the Earth that brings it close to the planet every 95 years. In about 600 years, it will appear to circle Earth in a quasi-satellite orbit. Scientists have suggested that it might make a good target for space exploration missions. Earth is the only planet known to have life. We've discovered past evidence of water and organic molecules on Mars and the building blocks of life on Saturn's moon Titan. We can see amino acids in nebulae in deep space, and scientists have speculated about the possible existence of life beneath the icy crust of Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's moon Titan. But Earth is the only place life
think
has
they
actually
smart,
been
Red
discovered.
Squid.
But if there's life on other planets,
They ain't want to
scientists
listen
are building
to
the
their teachers in
observatories,
school.
space
So
telescopes, and missions
I
that will
figure
help
if you're
find it.
listening to
Huge new
scientists
telescopes
to
are
a
under
regular hood
construction
nigga,
that will directly observe
they
the
gonna
atmospheres of planets
get
orbiting
it
other
embedded
stars
in their
in
head
search
a
of
little bit better.
biosignatures, evidence of life. Radio telescopes scan the skies for signals from extraterrestrials, and new space missions are in the works to search for evidence of life on Mars and the icy moons of the solar system. But for now, Earth remains the only place we know of where there's life. Now that is an interesting fact.
Huge thanks again to Fraser Kane for the script and for being the voiceover of this video. Click on the link here or in the description to check out his amazing channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, as the more likes the video gets, the better it will perform on YouTube algorithms, getting put in front of more people and helping the channel grow.
Yeah, so I got a couple videos on that just to give the whole rundown about Earth being spherical and all that. This is a shorter one, but actually I actually liked this video. Michelle, you know what
We saved $85 by literally clicking twice and installing a free browser add-on. Honey, anytime you check out on your computer, it will search the entire internet, and if it finds a coupon code, it will apply it. Here's how Honey works. We're currently on Macy's. We have a $279 mixer. We're gonna add it to our bag. Because we have the Honey add-on, all we have to do is hit apply coupon when checking out on any website. And boom, Honey actually found a coupon code that saved us $50. And that in a nutshell is how Honey works. And here's a list of all the websites Honey works on. You should really install it because you'll save thousands of dollars of your lifetime. Here's how you install Honey. You hit add to Chrome, you hit add extension, now you have Honey. Even Chandler can do it. Join Honey.com.
Across the moon, sometimes it just kind of glances the moon, just a little bit is in shadow, just on the top or on the bottom. From every different,
I'll be fucking with
there are so many proofs that the Earth is round, it's difficult to know where to start. And it's not okay to think that the Earth is flat. This is not a viable argument.
You hear that shit?
I have friends who have been on the International Space Station. They have orbited the Earth once every 90 minutes. You know, I have had personal experience with people that have been up in space and can see with their own eyes that the Earth is round.
I'm showing
and of course, we've taken all these amazing pictures from space. They're so beautiful, all those pictures of the Earth.
Right.
So I don't really know what's going on right now with this flat thing. But I will tell you that this is one of the things I really enjoyed teaching my own astronomy class about, because there are proofs all around you. It is not difficult to know that the Earth is round. In fact, people have known this for way more than 2,000 years. The ancient Greeks actually had a number of really elegant, wonderful proofs that the Earth was a sphere. So let's start from the simple to the slightly more complicated. One of the things you can see yourself with a pair of binoculars is if you actually go out to a lake and there are boats on that lake, the farther away a boat is, the more the bottom of the boat will disappear, and you'll basically just see the mast of the boat. And as a boat goes farther and farther away, the last thing you will see is the very top of the mast of that boat. And that's because the boat is actually going over the horizon that's curved. And that means that as it goes farther and farther away, you see less and less of the bottom of it and more of the top of that. You can see that with binoculars, by an ocean, by a lake. It's really easy. That wouldn't happen if the Earth were flat.
Oh, yeah,
you would simply see the boat getting smaller and smaller and smaller as it went farther away, but you'd be able to see the whole thing with the same proportions.
But then y'all still wasn't convinced.
Now, another way that you can tell that we're on a sphere is to think about how there's something called the tropics on the Earth. And the tropics are places near the equator of the Earth where sometimes the sun is overhead in the sky. And this was actually something that the Greeks used not only to prove that the Earth was round about 2,000 years ago, but they actually measured the circumference of the Earth accurate to within just a couple percent. 2,000 years ago, we've known that the Earth was round. There was a really brilliant Greek scientist called Eratosthenes. And Eratosthenes noticed that there was a town called Syene, and on a certain date, the sun would actually shine straight down to the bottom of a well. That meant the sun was directly overhead. You could look down a well and see the sun shining back at you. And on the very same date, farther away in the city of Alexandria, that didn't happen. The sun was not directly overhead. It was a slight angle. And all that Eratosthenes did was he measured the difference in the angle of the sun. It was straight overhead in Syene. In Alexandria, it was a little bit less than overhead. And he rationed that change in angle from one city to another was probably indicative of us being on a curved surface. And you could make all kinds of measurements, even between those two cities, and now, a lunar eclipse happens when the Earth casts a shadow on the moon. The moon actually goes dark. In fact, if you've seen one, you can actually see the Earth's shadow go across the moon. And when the moon is entirely in the Earth's shadow, the moon looks kind of dark and even kind of red colored. It's really, really beautiful. What's happening in that case is that the sun is on one side of the Earth. The Earth is in the middle, and it's casting a shadow. The Earth is casting a shadow on the moon. And as the shadow moves across the moon, you'll notice that the shadow is curved, it's round. So something like the sun that's bigger than the Earth and is able to cast a shadow of the Earth on the moon can actually show you the shape of the Earth. Aha, you might say, but could the Earth be a disk? Could it be flat, but it's actually still shaped like a disk, not like a sphere? There was a Greek scientist called Aristarchus, and what he noticed was that you can get a lunar eclipse at many different angles where the sun is. Sometimes the shadow goes straight across the moon. Sometimes it just kind of glances the moon. Just a little bit is in shadow, just on the top or on the bottom. From every different vantage point, every different angle that the sun is casting a shadow, you always get a perfectly curved shadow. The only shape that can cast a shadow that's curved from any direction you put the light is a sphere. So people have known that the Earth is spherical for thousands of years. It's not okay to say that the Earth is flat. This is some sort of strange denial. I don't know where it comes from. And it's something where I keep getting this question. We really need to put this question to bed because we've known the Earth is a sphere for a long time. There's some even well-meaning people that have kind of, they say, well, I don't really believe the Earth is flat, but I'm not really sure what to think about it. And they've asked me some interesting questions like they've heard that that space is very hot, that when you go up above the atmosphere, the temperature of space is millions of degrees, which is true. The problem is there's basically no air at all. So the gas right around the Earth is actually millions of degrees hot. That's actually true. But there's almost none of it. There's almost nothing. Nations, like one single proton whizzes by you at a temperature of 1,000,000 degrees. It's not the same as temperature, like in the air. It's not the same thing at all. So that one was one that I get sometimes. And the other one is, I actually said this to somebody, I couldn't believe they'd never thought of it, that, with binoculars, you can see planets. You can see Saturn and Jupiter. You can see Mars with a telescope, the sun, the moon, everything else you see in the solar system is a sphere. So we're the one thing that is different, and that actually made somebody who was more interested in actually hearing information, that actually got them to think. They were like, you're right. Everything else we take a picture of is a sphere.
Same shit I be trying to tell y'all. Everything else in fucking space is a sphere. So why would Earth not be in the spheroid? You know what I'm saying? That wouldn't make sense. But if y'all, I'm gonna get a little bit deeper. This is gonna be a little quicker, but just basically, I mean, why does gravity the ground? I mean, make it ground. I mean, I told y'all before to use your hands like it was gravity, and just grab clay dough and you know mush
So
it
why
together.
does gravity
It's gonna turn
sculpt things
a
into
spheroid.
spheres? Well, the first thing to say is that it doesn't necessarily. I pick up a snowball. It's not spherical, kind of an irregular shape. As I start adding mass to it, that gravitational pull becomes bigger. So I'll get to a point where this snowball will be so massive that the gravitational pull on its surface would be so strong that it would start to squash the material out of which it's made.
I mean, you're supposed to learn that in education.
In case of a planet or moon.
Where are you going to learn it at?
Now, you could ask the question, how much matter do I need for gravity to get strong enough to start overcoming the strength of rock and sculpting things into spheres? Well, that minimum size has got a name. It's a brilliant name. It's called the potato radius. You can see why. Because things that are too small for gravity to be strong enough to sculpt them look like the misshapen potatoes. The great thing is you don't even need to imagine it. You can calculate it. I did that this morning and I got an answer, just roughly between 100 and 200 kilometers. The brilliant thing, the most beautiful thing, was if you look up into space and look at the moons of Mars and Saturn and Jupiter and objects out there in the solar system, you will find that, roughly speaking, if their radius is bigger than about 200 kilometers, they're beautiful spheres. And if the radius is less than about 200 kilometers, they look more like misshapen potatoes.
I mean, that's crazy, man. I mean, it's so many facts, you know what I'm saying, that's pointed out to prove it. I'm just going through my little thing right here. This should enlighten y'all a little bit more, man. Damn. I mean, like, what the hell? When did y'all gonna get it in y'all skull that the Earth is a fucking globe and we can move on from here? And please don't come with the Star Wars, man. Not the Star Wars. The CGI.
Most people take it as a given that our Earth is orbiting the Sun.
Don't mean that our
but if you were sat down and asked exactly how we know the Earth is round, without the use of highly specialized technology, you may be at a loss. For instance, you have to be over 40,000 feet to begin to notice the curvature of the Earth, which is probably higher than most of you have ever flown. How do we actually know the Earth is round, and that we're not the center of the universe? Even today, there are people who passionately believe in a flat Earth model, where the Earth is a disk and the Sun simply orbits overhead. Throughout history, the geocentric model was often thought of as the correct model, where the Earth is the center of the universe and everything orbits around it. So how have some civilizations thousands of years ago come up with a heliocentric model, a round Earth orbiting around the Sun? Without space agencies' photos, how would you prove it? Is there a way to experience this firsthand from down here on Earth? So let's go into a bit more detail about this heliocentric model. The Earth is round and has a rough ball shape, the mass of which causes gravity. The Moon is in orbit around it. This system in turn is part of the solar system, a large number of planetary objects in orbit around the Sun. The Sun in turn is part of the Milky Way galaxy, one of billions upon billions in the known universe. But what are the telltale signs of our planet's place in this universe? In this video, I want to explain a few relatively simple observations we can make from Earth.
Simple.
The first experiment is the size of the Sun. If you were to measure the angular diameter or apparent size of the Sun, you would find it to be roughly 30 arc minutes, or 0.5 degrees in the sky. It doesn't matter if it's morning, noon, or evening, the angular diameter of the Sun stays roughly the same. Now this works with the heliocentric model, as the Sun stays roughly the same distance from the Earth. deviating only about 3% throughout its year. With the flat Earth theory, the distance from the sun will vary greatly throughout the day. During midday, the sun would be closest, and during the sunrise and sunset, the sun would be furthest away. As we know, the further an object is, the smaller it appears. For example, a straight road going off into the horizon. But in reality, the sun actually even appears slightly larger during sunset and sunrise due to the refraction of the Earth's atmosphere, rather than appearing smaller, even though it should be over 2 times further away than at noon. The fact the sun stays the same size in the sky testifies that the sun is a fairly constant distance from the Earth. The next frame of reference we can use to show that we are in orbit around the sun is the planets. We can view the planet's orbit from Earth, and depending on their size and position, we can work out our own orbit. For example, at certain points in our year, Mars appears to go backwards on itself. It doesn't follow a straight line in the sky. This shows it orbits the sun at a further point than Earth, and that Earth orbits quicker. If the geocentric model was correct, all the planets would orbit at a constant speed, not deviating from their course, which simply doesn't happen. Another proof Mars orbits further away from Earth is that if you were to use a telescope, Mars would always show its day side, no matter what time of year it is.
Images, I mean,
Venus, on the other hand, orbits between us and the sun.
I ain't gonna say we
and because of this, it has phases like the moon.
The ones with the technology,
and the bright side of Venus always faces the direction of the sun. Measuring its position in the sky, we can see that its year is quicker than Earth's. And we can see that it moves around the sun because its angular diameter and its phases change throughout the year. When it's a full disk shape, it's behind the sun, and it's also the smallest in our sky. But when it's entering a new phase, or it's almost completely unlit, it's because it's nearest to us, and its day side is facing in the opposite direction towards the sun.
That it's fake.
Still looking up into the sky, on cloudless nights, we see some reference points that are pretty much stationary. The stars. Or are they? In relation to each other, they don't really move, only on astronomical timescales. But if you were to make a time-lapse of high-exposure photos throughout the night, you would find all the stars move in the direction the Earth is rotating on its axis. Now, how do we know the axis it's rotating on? Making a time-lapse thing that the North Star, Polaris, reveals the center point.
Talking about them chimp experiments.
The same can be done in the south.
They used the dog. The dog was the first animal to go
now,
to space.
depending on the hemisphere you're standing on, also reveals different stars.
For a gym.
Standing anywhere on the southern hemisphere, for example, means you'll never see the North Star. And from where I am on the northern hemisphere means I can't see the Southern Cross.
Yeah.
The fact only certain stars are visible to you is proof of a round Earth, and the movement of stars is proof of its rotation. My final point is the 4 months of day at both poles. It's well documented that there is a midnight sun at both the North Pole and the South Pole. The North Pole midnight sun would make sense in a flat Earth sense, but not midnight sun at the South Pole. The sun would somehow have to shine over Antarctica at all the same time, which it simply couldn't do. With a round Earth, summer in the northern hemisphere, with the axial tilt of the Earth, means the North Pole is constantly in sunlight. And the same with the South Pole during its summer. This theory can be tested simply by going to the North and South Pole during their respective summers and seeing for yourself. Alternatively, you can check on weather websites to see the sunset and sunrise, and when they happen throughout the world. The fact we have seasons is further proof of the heliocentric model. Every 6 months, the direction of the Earth's axial tilt is pointed in opposite direction, meaning that sometimes the northern hemisphere is more exposed to the sun, and sometimes the southern hemisphere.
Can't you
Just
see
talking about stars again, these seasons explain why these stars aren't on a continuous loop every night. For example, if I was to look at a clear sky at 8 p.m. at night in February, the constellation Orion would still be below the horizon, but looking at it in August at 8 p.m., it is now visible in the sky. Thankfully, though, With the huge advances in technology in today's world, we can simply observe what the Earth would look like from space using the International Space Station's live feed and other satellites and
It
probes.
sounds like y'all just want to play a better
Remarkably,
guessing
you
game.
can even see the ISS as it orbits over your home, and a few photographers have been able to capture photos of it in surprising detail. This makes life easier for us too, but takes away some of the profound appreciation you can get from discovering these things for yourself. I challenge you to try a few of these things. Go out and look at the planets, look at the stars, and don't look at the sun without proper protection anyway. Well, thanks so much for watching. I hope you've learned some new things today. Did you enjoy it? If so, give it a like and pass this video on.
Man, I hope y'all learned some new things, man. I'm trying to educate y'all. And just because it's CGI, man, like I said, it don't make it fake because it's CGI. I mean, here, let me throw this out here just to debunk. This is old girl Michelle again, but she be knowing what she talking about. You know, maybe this might.
At Full Sail, we take a unique approach to teaching the art of filmmaking. Our students work on projects designed around the industry.
Showing the people, man, shit that I but I figure if I let a scientist or somebody like that tell y'all, it might seem a little bit better.
So, Oscar, you asked the question, what are some of the easiest ways that you can prove that the Earth is round? Because apparently this is something that we're debating. I have no idea why. That's a hard thing for me to even start talking about.
No, wait a minute. I ain't even gonna go to her again. But Red Squid, man, that's not just a white thing. You can make me pull up something from the brothers. I'm trying to pull up something to show my points. Now look, here, I'm gonna just do this quick one. Cause this how silly motherfuckers from Flat Earth be looking when they try to beat their own. He built a rocket in his backyard. But that's what I ain't gonna show this video then. Neil deGrasse Tyson is at least a scientist. I don't even think this dude was a scientist. I ain't even gonna show him. I ain't even gonna show him that. Here you go. Since you want to do some white bashing, brothers, to let you know that this shit is serious.
Is that Al-Khalifa al-Ma'mun measured or made an estimate. So he was a Khalifa and he was also a geographer. He estimated the circumference of the earth and came up with the figure of 24,000 miles. And if any of you is in that field, you know that this is only a few hundred miles off the most sophisticated modern means of measuring the circumference of the earth. So that's one, in terms of how early the Muslims discovered that. But what is more fascinating that we talk about like the 8th century and somebody speaking about
let that go
the
over
earth
your
as
head.
Spherical in shape.
No, he black. He a
piece of information
don't even try that.
Was not known in Europe until so many centuries later. Remember the difficulty that some scientists have with religious authorities when they said the earth is not flat, as some clergy believed it to be, several centuries before. And by the way, may I add also a remark here. We're not saying that each and every invention by Muslim or others was directly or specifically inspired by a specific ayah in the Quran on this. But this could be a case in question that one would be safe to assume that he was inspired by the Quran. There are several ayahs in the Quran that show that the earth is not really flat.
You hear that?
يولج الليل في النهار ويولج Allah merges the day into the night and merges the night into the day and night and day. You can't imagine merging if the earth is flat, so the sun comes from one side, it is all day, then sunset and go to sleep, everything is dark. Merging means there is gradual. When the Quran speaks also, Rabbul Mashariqi or Rabbul Magharib, not only one east or west or two, then depending on the change in the poles of the earth that some scientists are probably speculating about, but Mashariq, many east and west. You can't imagine having different points, numerous points of sunrise and sunset on a spherical, except if you have spherical shape itself. Anyway, there are lots of evidence. This is a topic by itself, but it could possibly be inspired by reading the Quran. There have been a number of very famous geographers.
So
One was
nobody say they
who also
read the
described the
Quran
earth as spherical. It took still the 10th century
and get
before
a
Europe
globe
even
and get a
came
flat
to
earth
accept
out of the
that.
Quran.
Later in the 10th century, Al-Mas'udi has encyclopedic work on geography. Al-Yaqubi in his famous Mu'jam al-Bildan in the 12th century, adding, the various major cities and their position on the earth. Even mathematical geography was introduced by Muslim geographers as early as the 13th century by Al-Marakishi.
All right, so I keep putting up this heat, man. Dude want to keep saying that it's all white people. So, I found some Muslim people, to try to tell it in their view. And but you was just saying, what you want me to go to Indians? Let's take you to India. How many facts do you want? First you say it's a white thing, then I go to the Muslims. Now it's he a white Arab. Yeah, what about the Indians? Where do people from India fall
India
in?
has always attracted thousands of travelers through time and age. The vast knowledge of the scholars of India has forever drawn seekers of knowledge to this land of mystery and ancient wisdom. When Galileo stated that the earth was round, little did he know that a good 1,000 of years before him, the Indian scholar Aryabhatta had already mentioned this clearly in his book Aryabhatya,
So
written in
Aryabhatta
499
and Galileo
CE.
said the earth was round.
Aryabhatta and another scholar Brahmagupta
How
went
much
further
more
on to
facts do y'all
correctly
want?
state that the earth rotates on its own axis and revolves around the sun. Something that finds a mention even further back in Rig Veda, which was written between 3141 to 3129 BCE. What the world called geography was known as Bhushastra for ages in India. Bhu, the Sanskrit word for earth, and Shastra, meaning science. In 1030 CE, Al-Biruni, a Persian scholar who came to India, wrote of his amazement about India's vast knowledge in geography in his magnum opus book Kitab-ul-Hind. The ancient Indian scholars knew that the science of the earth extended way beyond the earth
Ain't
itself
nothing false
and
about that
included the
narrative, Red
atmosphere.
Squid.
Lalacharya, in his work Shishyadi Vritti Tantra, speaks of the 7 atmospheric layers as Avaha, Pravaha, Udvaha, Samvaha, Suvaha, Parivaha, and Paravaha. Thousands of years later,
2, 3,
modern
4,
science
5.
recognized these as troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, ionosphere, thermosphere, exosphere, the home of knowledge, wisdom, and philosophy for thousands of years. This is amazing India.
That exosphere ate everybody you of an exoskeleton. And what do you think of when you get your exoskeleton? if the Earth was flat. I will put something up there. This is what if. The fucking title is itself. What if the Earth was flat? This shit would happen. Motherfuckers would be falling.
What if the flat earthers were right and the Earth was, in fact, flat? How would gravity work? Would we still have time zones? Change of seasons?
No.
Would the conditions for life here on Earth exist at all?
No.
This is what if, and here's what the Earth would look like if it was flat. First of all, forget about walking to its edge. Gravity would simply not let you. Wait, would gravity even be possible on a flat Earth? The answer is yes, of course. The force of gravity is what keeps our planet, or any other planet, together. It's what forms a planet in the first place. In the case of a pancake-shaped Earth, the force of gravity would pull you to the center and would become stronger as you tried to walk away from it, pulling the top of your body backwards.
They say about 17%.
It would feel as if you were climbing a hill that was getting steeper and steeper and steeper. By the time you reach the edge, down and behind you would be the same direction. Sound weird? How about water being sucked into the center of the Earth? Or diagonal trees growing in the opposite direction of gravity's pull? And then there's the sun. How would a flat Earth behave in space? One flat Earth theory is that the sun revolves around the Earth, not the other way around. What if the sun orbited the Earth just like the moon does? In that case, you'd never suffer jet lag because there'd be no such thing as time zones. The sun would light up both the top and the bottom of the planet. This would mean constant light, no day and night cycle. Also, no seasons.
They want to hear that.
Or solar eclipses. The sun itself would have to be much smaller. Otherwise, it would burn the Earth to a crisp. It would probably fry the planet anyway, as there would be no geomagnetic field to protect Earth from its radiation. The geomagnetic field is generated in the solid core of the Earth and keeps our atmosphere from escaping. Without it, cosmic rays would bombard our bodies, causing everything from cancer to DNA damage. The oceans would escape into space, and so would the air and all our oxygen. But let's assume that a flat Earth had an alternative to our magnetic field. This way you'd still be alive to notice some of the strange flat Earth effects, like your shadow. Say you had a friend just as tall as you, but they lived 1,000 miles away. On a sunny day, your shadows would be the very same length. Because unlike here, on a spherical Earth, the sun's rays would hit both of you at the same angle. And if you two were to meet up, traveling would turn out very different. Let's take a map introduced by the Flat Earth Society. Yeah, the one that shows the Arctic at the center and Antarctica as an ice wall around the edges. In this world, it would take you 32 hours to fly from Australia to Argentina. Did we mention there'd be no GPS? Satellites wouldn't be able to orbit a flat Earth, leaving humanity with no navigation and no synchronized time. This means no ATMs, no credit cards, no high-speed stock market transactions. On the bright side, with a good pair of binoculars, you could see Dubai's Burj Khalifa from any part of the flat world. But let's be honest, you don't need to build your own rocket to see that the Earth is not flat. The evidence is all around us.
That's a big what if. That's all about if the but it ain't. So you see why they say if. I mean, it wouldn't make no sense. Let's just go ahead and debunk this flat Earth shit once
based upon their mass. Eric Dubais explains that this law of science has never been proven.
Niggas ain't right about if it's a flat Earth. I mean, if it's gravity from the flat Earth perspective, or they ain't right about gravity from the global aspect. But the globals got scientists, NASA, everybody working with them. So here we go.
And cannot be observed. This magnetic-like attraction of massive objects gravity is purported to have can be found nowhere in the natural world. There is no example in nature of a massive sphere or any other shaped object by which its virtue of its mass alone causes smaller things to stick to it or orbit around it.
So here's a view of Saturn and its rings. I need to emphasize that this is not computer generated by NASA. This was recorded with a webcam through a 4-inch telescope that cost less than £500. And I know that for certain because I was the one who took this footage. I honestly encourage you to buy a small telescope and have a look for yourself. Gravity perfectly explains the rings, from why they even exist to why there are gaps in them based on the orbits of Saturn's moons.
Try spinning a wet tennis ball or any other spherical object with smaller things placed on its surface, and you will find that everything falls or flies off, and nothing sticks to or orbits it.
This part of the video really tells me that he doesn't understand gravity whatsoever. First, an object doesn't have to be spherical to have gravity. Gravity is the result of anything with mass. Take the asteroid Spherical, for example. It's not spherical, and it has a ring system orbiting it. Second point, an object doesn't have to be smaller than another object to be affected by its gravity. Not at all. A perfect example of this is the Earth's moon system. Anyone with a decent computer and some basic programming skills, or even just Universe Sandbox 2 or something, can run a simulation of the Earth-Moon system and see that the Earth is tugged on by the Moon as it orbits the Earth, despite the fact that the Moon is 81 times less massive.
Debunked, whether
So
y'all like
this
it or not.
part of the video really sends your credibility down the drain. And also, I just think it's absolutely crazy how you use a tennis ball as an example of something that doesn't have gravity. A tennis ball is ridiculously small compared to how big things have to be to possess any noticeable gravity.
To claim the existence of a physical law without a single practical evidential example is hearsay and not science.
Hearsay and not science. Hearsay and not science. The globe ball Earth is real and flat Earth is hearsay and not science.
Congratulations on winning the Valentine's Day contest.
So, what's your fantasy?
Revenge on a childhood bully. Oh my god, that's really hurt. This is not what I meant.
The island's twisting what we asked for.
PG-13.
Skipped his ad. My bad. My bad. All right. So, man, I've been. I mean,
Professor Dave.
it's proven that it's a globe Earth. I mean, I don't know how many.
Based upon their mass. Eric debate.
How much I can educate y'all on that. I mean, I'm trying to let y'all see just a little tiny facts, you know, that show. Let me see. Look here. Let me go to a psychology standpoint. You know, I ain't even gonna go to the demonstration of it. Let's just go to the what I wanted.
You can tell people you're gay. You can tell people you're Christian. You can tell people I'm part of ISIS. But you won't get ridiculed as much as you say you're a flat earther.
Latest weather around the globe, light winds, light rain.
That's me drinking on the way to the Flat Earth Conference in Cary, North Carolina, just outside of Raleigh. Tickets were $149. All 550 of them sold out. And I want to understand how so many people arrive at a belief system that they know opens them up to ridicule. And the first clue is they generally were super skeptical that the Earth was flat initially.
When I first met my significant other, right off the bat, he shared with me with how he was a flat earther. And at first I looked at him and I was like, you're crazy. Like, you believe that the world is like flat? Like, there's no way.
They did not believe the Earth's flatness. And then they watched a YouTube video.
After, many nights of looking at YouTube videos of flat Earth and trying to debunk flat Earth, just ultimately became a flat earther.
Every single person I talked to became a flat earther because of YouTube video.
A lot of the time it's sort of a multimedia thing. It'll be a slideshow with text and, a voiceover narration. And it's really kind of a lot like a college lecture. Someone is trying to teach you information.
Only NASA and other government space agencies show curvature in their fake CGI photos and videos.
it's not totally
Sound like
surprising that someone
somebody I
might walk
know,
away
huh?
from seeing this video and say, hey, I believe what this video just told me.
I talk to people about, hey, I went to this Flat Earth conference. Everyone's like, what are they like? What are they like? Are they crazy? Are they stupid? And it's like, no, they're not crazy or stupid. They're very normal.
We're all normal people.
Except for the guy who's flying a rocket to prove the Earth is flat.
I will fire a rocket and it will pull me by my shoulders 42 miles at 1.5 G into the edge of space.
Even though everyone I talked to was skeptical initially about Flat Earth, they were all already conspiracy theorists.
I had a couple different awakenings, I feel like, in the past 5 years. You know, what they're doing to our food, genetically modified organisms, September 11th, the fluoride in our water.
If you already think 9/11 is fake and you're watching 9/11 truther videos and the algorithm keeps on suggesting Flat Earth videos.
I don't have nothing else better to do, so I click on it.
If that first video is kind of persuasive.
For 2 weeks, I'll save in 3. I'm just going back to watching content. I don't want to say on that 3rd week, I was in the 75%
Don't fall into that
range.
fake ass recruiting system.
And as months go by, went from 75 to obviously I'm here at this conference and I'm a full-blown believer.
I think we're all susceptible to it on some point.
Yeah.
If you have that, if you already believe in mass deception.
The one thing that we're 100% on is that we are being lied to.
So for this guy, Mark Sargent, who is one of the most prominent and earliest Flat Earth YouTubers.
It's kind of like the wife that gets cheated on and she finds out. Once she finds out, she absolutely watches every move he makes from that point forward.
It seems like a giant leap to go from 9/11 was an inside job to the Earth is flat.
Right.
You just keep working up like different tiers to where, okay, now we're on this tier and now we're on this tier.
Do you believe the Sandy Hook massacre was a false flag attack?
Yes.
There's no way they killed 6 million people. Gassed them because there's only 15 million Jews in the world at the time.
The way that these people often describe it is taking the red pill, right? Which is from the Matrix. You can take the blue pill and live in, you know, the world that everyone
They love using that damn
says
Matrix.
all these fake lies, or you can see the truth and how the world really is. I think that they really believe that once you have chosen to open your mind to all these things, then the floodgates are open.
A lot of people I talk to lost friends because of their Flat Earth beliefs.
I lost a lot of friends, yeah.
Everybody that I knew before I fell into this, I really don't know anymore.
You see that?
But they
So don't
stick
lose
with
your
the Flat Earth
friends,
beliefs
man.
because they find meaning in a Flat
That's
Earth.
like
It gives you
claiming
more of a
crazy.
purpose. It makes you want to figure out who put us here, what put us here, what's it look like, why are we here? It has been the best thing that ever happened to me, actually.
Basically what they told me was, okay, if you believe in the heliocentric model, then we're just on a random rock floating through a random universe full of chaos. We're not here for a reason.
They kind of program you to think that there is no purpose, that you could just, everything could just be gone in a second and none of it would ever mean anything.
Whereas if you believe in the flat Earth,
then that's basically saying that thing was divinely created, because gravity's now out of the equation, and all we have to measure things in regards to would be like density and buoyancy and real legitimized science.
And so I think it's important in that aspect to show, like, hey, you're not just somebody floating on a ball through space. You're important to somebody.
We are completely energetic, spiritual beings that have a purpose, and that's being suppressed. Absolutely is. It makes complete sense to me.
Neither of us can say definitively if the world is flat or not. So if you want to find out the actual solution and answer, you need to
go to a
research
library.
Outside of
Go
you.
to a library. Talk to a scientist.
Please.
So maybe he's been infiltrated by the Illuminati.
Here, let me put this in the damn chat.
Long live flat Earth.
Talk to science.
I think we can leave it at that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
Cool.
Now you see that, man? Flat earthers, man, y'all losing friends is making y'all look crazy. To where, you know, y'all know that shit ain't right, man. I know motherfuckers want to, you know, have a purpose in life, but here we go. I ain't even gonna do the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing. We're gonna stay on the white voice and y'all.
Try Target same-day delivery at your door so you can get
nobody came up
more pamper.
with the with no better explanation. We all ain't waking up at fucking 11 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning all around the world.
Earth looks flat, it feels flat. The logical explanation is the Earth is flat, right? But like, once you get past the crazy talk, how do we know the Earth is round?
Get past the crazy talk. Y'all think it's crazy.
Welcome back, my woke friends. Trace here for D News. If you follow the pervasive yellow journalism online and elsewhere, you've probably heard of rapper B.O.B.'s beef with NASA, science, and specifically Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist and science celeb. Love you, Neil. In short, some pop culture peeps think that the Earth is flat. Proving them wrong is simple, though it took hundreds of years for science to figure it out in the first place. We know the Earth is round by observing it closely. If you watch a ship as it disappears over the horizon, the bottom will vanish first, and then the top disappears later. It looks like it's sinking, kind of. That's because the Earth is curved. Using a stopwatch, you can do your own experiment to prove it. Watch the sun set over the ocean or an open plain with a friend. If you stand while they lay down, each will see the sun cross the horizon at a slightly different time. The Greeks first realized this 2,500 years ago and spent hundreds of years attempting to explain it. First, mathematician Pythagoras looked at the moon and discovered a curve in the line dividing the light from the shadow on its surface. That line's called the terminator. A flat moon would have a straight line. The only explanation? The moon must be a sphere. Sometime later, Anaxagoras, while watching the moon during an eclipse, realized the shadow covering the moon, that must be coming from the Earth. And that shadow was definitely curved, so the Earth must be round. And still later, in about 350 BC, Aristotle noted that star constellations that were visible in Greece were hidden beyond the horizon in Egypt. His conclusion, yet again, was the Earth must be a sphere, just like the moon.
And these
Sidebar,
ain't theories,
notice
Sean,
humanity
man.
knew
These
the Earth
is
was
all
around
facts,
1,800
bro.
years before 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Just debunking some grade school crap. Don't worry about it. Once these great thinkers realized the Earth was curved, they wanted to prove it. A Greek astronomer named Eratosthenes figured it out. On the summer solstice, the sun reaches a peak at the top of the sky. Eratosthenes went to two distant locations in Egypt on the solstice and measured shadows cast by tall towers in each place. Then, using some geometry, he could calculate the curvature of the Earth between those two places. From there, he could extrapolate how many degrees around the circle of the Earth he had moved, ultimately revealing the circumference and diameter of the whole planet. Dang, Eratosthenes. Thanks to all these ancient humans, we know the Earth is just a bit over 40,000 kilometers around the poles, which is also supported by modern observations. And knowing that, we can determine how far the horizon is from you at any given point, which changes depending on how high above sea level you are. The Earth is curved, and we know it. In the end, the problem is flat earthers don't trust science. When the Flat Earth Society was founded in the mid-1920s, the idea was that observation trumps all. This is called the Zetetic philosophy. Many skeptics believe the same. You can see it all over the internet. If the Earth looks flat, it must be flat. And often these skeptics cry, "Prove me wrong." Only trust your own observations. The funny thing about that argument is that it was observation that showed us the Earth's curvature in the first place. Pythagoras observed that shadow line across the moon. Countless people have observed ships sailing underneath the horizon, not to mention the fact that we've gone to space and observed a very spherical Earth from above. And if you don't believe all of those scientists and government people for some reason, go make your own observation. Climb a mountain, watch a ship sail over the horizon, watch the sunset with a friend, fly in an airplane, and behold an inarguably spherical Earth. Your move, Bob. Conspiracy theories are just the best, aren't they? Have you ever wondered why people love 9/11 conspiracies, or why we're so obsessed with the Illuminati, or which conspiracy theories might actually be true? Check out Test Tube Plus, my other show. We talk about that for a whole week. We covered all of those topics and more. Check it out. The thing about 9/11, though, is we didn't expect it to happen. So there was a lot of misreporting on that day. There were bombs on the ground, some people said. There were other planes in the air, some people said. There were car bombs parked outside of buildings, some people said. Do you guys know anything else we should make a video debunking? Let us know down in the comments and come back here every day for more D News.
Mom, a lightning bolt hit the insured's riding mower, but his farmer's home insurance policy covered the damage. They really do know a thing or two because they've seen a thing or two.
That was the same way at his age.
I ain't never none of my songs
Get a
up
quote
here.
today.
Try to take a quick break and play one of these K.Z.U.P songs. This your boy, one and only K.Z.U.P. Get this money.
Let's go. K-Rod.
So I want to switch my shit up now, and this shit happened. Like, what the fuck? See, they wouldn't even let him go to my Get This Money video. Maybe it's trying to play both of them. Let me go back now. Okay, here we go. Try this one more time.
Let's go. K-Rod.
They ain't gonna let me pull my video up. They had. Nah, Sean, that's propaganda on the flat Earth side. They ain't gonna let me play my Get This Money song.
Try Target same-day delivery at your door so you can get more.
Now let's try it. She must have had too much shit playing.
Let's go. K-Rod.
I guess they hated on the kid, man. I was trying to get a rap song up here. It's under 2 tabs. Let me see. So how's this shit playing?
Try Target same-day delivery at your door so you can get more. More pamper.
So fucking thing. Alright. Yeah, I'm about to close this down anyways. I probably have one already. Use myself. I don't want to mess with my good video.